And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, today we're going to be taking a look at Dead Panic. Now, this is from Fireside Games. They've made a few games, but the game that they're most famous for is a game called Castle Panic, in which you defended a castle as people came in. Dead Panic has a very similar idea. In fact, the basic core of the games is the same, although there's quite a few differences and they feel very different. But in Dead Panic, you are survivors in a cabin and zombies are approaching and you have to survive and fight them off as long as you can. Let's take a look at how the game plays and then I'll come back. At the beginning of the game, you're going to take different characters. Each player is going to be a different character. So you have Al, the construction worker, Maria, the businesswoman, and Father Michael, the priest, and Julie, the delivery driver, and Ray, the paramedic, and Barbara, Mrs. Joker, the convict, and David, the personal trainer, and Sandra, the police officer. These are all people, most of them I wouldn't mind having with me in this kind of outbreak. But you start here in the middle of the cabin, which whatever characters that you've selected, and you'll start in different rooms of the cabin. Now you'll notice that the cabin has these rooms and they're connected to each other, but you have to move from room to room when you're moving around. So, for example, I can move from here to here, but I couldn't move diagonally. You have to move to a room that's next to you. As a side note, there's these walls in the cabin and the characters, they all have these stand-up things, but they keep falling out all the time. I wish there was a way to keep these so that these pieces didn't fall out all the time. It would have been easier to move them around. But enough about that. On the outskirts, we have pulled from a bag, zombies are coming in. Now each zombie has a certain number of hit points. You can see this brute here has 3 hit points. They have a special ability, and that's denoted by the brute symbol there. When he hits a wall, he destroys it. And they also have a number that shows how hard it is to defeat them. The brute there has a 9. At the beginning of a player's turn, they have 2 actions that they can take. One of those actions is drawing cabin cards. So, for example, you can only draw these, of course, if you're in the cabin. You might get an energy drink. You can play this in the future to get an extra action. Or a rope here, which you can use to move someone else 2 spaces. Or a helmet here, which lets you re-roll after melee combat. You keep the second result. Most of the things in the cabin are things you can use for weapons. A fire axe, which has 2 hands, and you can make a melee attack against someone and you get +1 to that. The crowbar, which lets you re-roll once. The pipe wrench, that's a very useful thing to have. And of course the indisputable chainsaw. Now this one has a number 2 and a 1. This lets you kill a zombie for free and then rotate it to the next low side, so it actually can be used. There's many ranged weapons in the game that have ammunition. The rifle here has 2 ammunition, so you can use it. You turn it like this, use it again. Then you have 1 turn where you can use it as a club. Unlike the pipe wrench and the other things that you can use continuously, when you use a gun as a club, then it's gone for good. So there's various different guns, an AK-47, and of course the very important shotgun. And you never know, in a deck there's always a possibility that you will find a zombie when you're searching. So it's not completely safe to look through the cabin cards, but that is one thing that you can do when you're in the cabin. Another thing that players can do is they can move. They can go out the cabin walls, move around for 1 action each. They can shoot their weapons that they have for 1 action each. They can give each other things if they're in the same spot. You can give each other items that you need. They can also repair cracks. See, as the zombies are marching in, and so here comes this sprinter who actually comes in pretty quickly. When they hit the wall, they don't destroy the wall. They just put a crack in the wall, which is symbolized by putting that piece on like this. And so you can try to repair these cracks. One of the special characters can repair them for free. That's a pretty big deal. Now, What is the goal of this game? Well, the goal is to rescue survivors. Okay, that's actually not true. The goal is to kind of help survivors. When you pull from the bag, at the end of each player making 2 actions, you're going to draw an event card. And this event card is going to tell you how many zombies are added to the board. So for example, here in this Creeping Death, it's the number of players plus 1. Zombies you'll pull from the bag. You will roll a die for each bag, and that die will tell you what number they show up in. So for example, if I rolled a 5, they would show up in the woods over here, while if I rolled a 6 over here, etc. And I'll pull them from a bag. And then there's also a special ability that this event will give you. So every player takes a turn, then you draw one of these event cards. So here, the number of zombies. And all zombies in the woods move in extra space at this time. Sometimes we draw and place 1 token in each woods, where the arc still has a wall. Sometimes you roll a die to see how many zombies. Sometimes it's just a specific number, 5. But there's always things like this. You have to be very careful here. Rotten wood, all players using a weapon as a club, roll the die once for each club, and you might have a chance for it to be discarded. It's kind of a pain, but that's how these things work. So this is going to happen, and more zombies are going to come out. But there's a few survivors in the bag. So when you pull for a zombie, a survivor might come out. Now, survivors have 3 hit points, and survivors are going to be running for the cabin. If the survivor gets to the cabin, there's 3 survivors in the bag, and each survivor has a piece of the radio. You'll notice that these fit together like a puzzle to form the complete radio. So you're looking for these 3. Now, if the survivors get killed by the zombies, which is very likely, since zombies outside are going to be attracted towards them, then they'll drop a radio piece when they die, although the survivor will flip over and become a zombie who you have to take out too. In fact, I should mention that you can turn into a zombie if you are killed by the zombies. You can take injuries and you'll turn into a zombie too, with special abilities trying to stop the other players. But let's hope that doesn't happen. So you're going to get those 3 radio pieces. You give them all to the same person. That person uses an action to assemble them and to call the van. A van will then show up in one of the areas, and you can move that van around, whoever has the radio, and then players will be running to get into the van. Once the players get into the van, all the players get into the van, the game is over. You can even use the van to hit zombies and such as time is moving by. Combat with zombies is simply rolling dice, using modifiers, trying to get a specific number to knock out the zombie, to do hit points to it. Otherwise, zombies will either make you drop your weapon you're using or take an injury. And once you've taken 3 injuries, you're dead and turn into a zombie yourself. I said each player has special abilities. This guy can repair cracks for free. She can trade items to another player no matter where they are. He can give his action to somebody else. She can draw 2 cards for 1 action. So there's that too. But that is essentially how the game works. You're going to keep going until all the players are turned into zombies, or until you get that radio, call the van, get in the van, and get out of there. And of course, not everybody needs to make it in the van to get out. As you can see in Dead Panic, the idea of the game is different. In Castle Panic, your characters aren't actually there. You're just working together with cards defending this castle. Here you actually have a character who moves around, and that's important because you might not stay inside the cabin. You may run out to draw the zombies from other people because they'll go after people rather than destroy the walls. You have to be careful as these zombies come in and they destroy the walls and they're moving around. Those zombies are hunting down survivors and they're hunting you down. And you feel a very different feel as they come around and do that. Now the artwork is good. Some of the cards were gorier than I might have thought. You can kind of tell with the cover of the box. This is a family game, but I would probably rank it almost as a PG-13 because of the level of gore in some of the cards. I mean, it's not super gross, but it's gross enough. But the game itself, has, I think it's good, except for the little stands for the characters in the walls. Everything else is good quality components. The zombies feel different. Now, this is where I wonder how I feel about the game. I like the game. Okay, I actually like Castle Panic better because I like how they march in and you fight them off. In this one, I always felt like zombies were kind of a slow thing, and this game does have some slow pieces. It has these creeper zombies that they move you roll a die and there's a 50% chance they won't move or not, but when they do get to the wall, they like creep right through the wall. They don't stop and start banging on the wall. okay, that's cool, that's thematic, and I like the bruiser just smashes the wall, and another guy who's good at fighting and so on. But there's these sprinter zombies that move 2 spaces, which means they'll be there in 2 turns, and there's lots of cards, maybe not lots, but there's several cards that increase the movement of the zombies. And so it just seems like the zombies are like boom, 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 always coming in and rushing in. And I don't mind the overwhelming feeling of the zombies coming in. I just feel like it's really fast. The game just seems really fast-paced. It feels like all the zombies can run. I know they can't. It just gives me that feeling. So, and there's some weird thematic things, you know. I don't mind finding all those weapons in that cabin. I wonder who was storing up for the apocalypse. But the one woman's special ability of being able to trade with anyone on the board, I don't know, what's she doing? Taking a radio, throwing it across the cabin to the other person? That's odd. But it is good. It's light. You have to realize that going in. This is a light game. The rules are a little confusing sometimes, but you just use basic common sense as you move around. And I like the idea that the van's going to come up. Let's get in the van and let's get out of there. And sometimes the person who goes through all the work to get the radio together and calls the van shows in a different spot. Everyone else gets in the van and leaves, and you're kind of stuck. You know, well, actually, I think that's really, really funny. But you know, I'm not a huge fan of the zombie genre, but this is one of the best ones I've played. I think because it's light, it's quick, gives me that zombie feeling, even if they are a little fast, has good artwork and good components, really easy to set up and teach. So, a good game, Dead Panic.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
When there's so much entertainment in the world, I don't know why anyone would choose the Dice Tower.